In the quiet land of Canaan, nestled between dry hills and scattered olive groves, lived a man named Jacob. He was a father of 12 sons, each born through years of waiting, labor, and the deep love of 2 women. But of all his sons, Jacob loved one above the rest, Joseph, the son of his old age and the child of his beloved wife Rachel. Joseph was different. From a young age he was full of curiosity, tenderness, and wisdom beyond his years. He listened when others spoke. He asked questions the others never thought of. While his brothers chased sheep across rocky hills, Joseph stayed close to home, learning the ways of dreams and stories, listening to the wind, and writing in the dust. Jacob saw it clearly. This son was destined for more. To show his love, Jacob gave Joseph a special gift, an elegant robe woven with bright colors. No other son had such a garment. It shimmered in the sun. It danced in the wind. Joseph wore it with quiet pride. But love can make enemies, and his brothers burned with jealousy. They whispered behind his back. They watched his every move. Every time he wore that robe, it reminded them, Father loves him more. Then came the dreams. One night, Joseph dreamt he and his brothers were tying bundles of grain in the field. Suddenly, his bundle stood upright, while the others gathered around and bowed to it. When he told his brothers, their eyes grew dark. Are you saying you will rule over us? They spat. Another night, he dreamt the sun, moon, and 11 stars bowed before him. Even Jacob was troubled by this one. Will your mother and I and your brothers bow to you? He asked. But in his heart, Jacob remembered these things. Joseph's dreams were not empty. They were glimpses of a future that none could understand yet. Then, one day, Jacob sent Joseph to check on his brothers, who were grazing flocks far away. Dressed in his colorful robe, Joseph walked across the dry hills, unaware that this journey would change his life forever. When his brothers saw him coming from a distance, they said to one another, "Here comes the dreamer. Let us kill him and see what becomes of his dreams." Reuben, the eldest, felt guilt in his heart. "Let's not kill him," he said. "Throw him into a pit and leave him." So they stripped Joseph of his robe and threw him into a deep, dry well. He cried for help, but they turned their backs. While they sat to eat bread, a caravan of traders passed by, men riding camels, carrying spices and treasures toward Egypt. Judah said, "What gain is there in killing our brother? Let's sell him to these traders." And so they did. They sold Joseph for 20 pieces of silver. As the caravan carried him away in chains, Joseph looked back at his homeland, his father's tent, the hills he once walked, and the place he was no longer part of. His brothers dipped his robe in goat's blood and returned to Jacob. "We found this," they said. "Is this your son's coat?" Jacob held the stained cloth and wept. "A wild beast has devoured him," he cried. "My son is gone." He tore his clothes, fell to the ground, and refused to be comforted. But Joseph was not dead. He was on his way to Egypt, a land of pyramids, powerful kings, and strange gods, and God was with him. Egypt was nothing like Canaan. It was louder, busier, filled with temples and statues and strange customs. Joseph was brought into the house of a powerful Egyptian official named Potiphar. He was the captain of Pharaoh's guard, wealthy, feared, and respected. Though Joseph had come in as a slave, he served with quiet strength. He worked with care, with honesty, and with a heart that still held tightly to God. His hands cleaned floors, but his eyes remained full of wisdom. Potiphar noticed. Soon Joseph was no longer sweeping the courts. Potiphar placed him over his household. Joseph managed the servants, the crops, the records, and the storerooms. Everything Joseph touched seemed to prosper, because God was with him. Even as a slave, Joseph held dignity, and Potiphar's house was blessed because of it. But trouble came through the eyes of Potiphar's wife. She watched Joseph. She admired him. Day after day, her eyes followed him as he worked. Then, one day, she approached him and said, "Lie with me." Joseph was shocked. "My master trusts me with everything. How could I betray him? And how could I sin against God?" But she did not stop. Each day she tempted him again, and each day Joseph refused. Then came the trap. When the house was empty, she grabbed him by his robe and said, "Lie with me." Joseph pulled away and ran, but his robe tore in her hand. Angry and rejected, she screamed. Servants came running. She held up the robe and lied. "This Hebrew tried to attack me." Potiphar returned. He heard her story, and though deep down he doubted it, he could not be seen as weak before his court. Joseph was thrown into prison. Once again, Joseph was in a pit, but even in prison, God was with him. He did not grow bitter. He did not lose faith. Joseph served in prison just as he had in Potiphar's house. He helped the guards. He comforted the prisoners. His wisdom and calm spirit became known. The prison keeper saw Joseph's heart and placed him in charge of all the other inmates. Joseph organized meals, kept peace, and offered hope. Even behind bars, he was a leader. Then one night, 2 of Pharaoh's servants were thrown into the same prison, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker. They each had strange dreams. In the morning, Joseph noticed their troubled faces. "Why are you sad?" he asked. "We had dreams," the cupbearer said, "but there is no one to interpret them." Joseph replied, "Interpretation belongs to God. Tell me your dreams." The cupbearer spoke first. "In my dream, there was a vine with 3 branches. It budded and blossomed. Grapes grew, and I pressed them into Pharaoh's cup and placed it in his hand." Joseph smiled. "In 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your position. But please, remember me when you are set free." The baker, seeing the good interpretation, quickly shared his dream. "There were 3 baskets of bread on my head. Birds came and ate the bread from the top basket." Joseph's face fell slightly. "In 3 days, Pharaoh will lift your head, but hang you. Birds will eat your flesh." 3 days passed. On Pharaoh's birthday, both dreams came true. The cupbearer was restored. The baker was executed. But the cupbearer forgot Joseph, and Joseph remained in prison. Another 2 full years passed. Yet even in waiting, Joseph's faith did not die. He believed the God who had spoken in dreams would not forget him. It was a restless night in the palace. Pharaoh, the great king of Egypt, had been disturbed by dreams. Powerful, confusing dreams that no wise man in all of Egypt could explain. He tossed and turned in his golden bed, the visions haunting his mind. In one dream, 7 fat cows came out of the Nile, followed by 7 thin cows who devoured the fat ones. In another, 7 healthy heads of grain were swallowed by 7 thin, scorched ones. Pharaoh was troubled. He summoned all his magicians and wise men, but none could give him the meaning. Then, the cupbearer remembered Joseph. "Pharaoh," he said, "I remember my faults today. 2 years ago, when I was in prison, there was a Hebrew servant who interpreted my dream, and it came true. His name is Joseph." Pharaoh ordered him brought at once. Joseph was taken from the prison. He washed, shaved, and was dressed in clean clothes. He stood before Pharaoh, not as a slave, but as a man marked by grace. "I have heard you interpret dreams," Pharaoh said. Joseph answered with humility, "I cannot, but God will give Pharaoh an answer." Pharaoh shared his dreams. Joseph listened carefully, then spoke. "God is showing Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 fat cows and the 7 good heads of grain are 7 years of great abundance. The 7 thin cows and 7 scorched heads are 7 years of famine. There will be 7 years of plenty in all Egypt, followed by 7 years of terrible famine. The dream came twice because the matter is certain, and God will do it soon." Pharaoh and his court fell silent. Joseph continued, "Let Pharaoh appoint a wise and discerning man to manage the land. Let him store food during the good years, so that the land may survive the famine." Pharaoh looked at his officials and said, "Can we find anyone like this man, in whom is the Spirit of God?" Then Pharaoh turned to Joseph. "Because God has shown you all this, there is no one as wise as you. You shall be in charge of my house. Only in the throne will I be greater than you." And just like that, the prisoner became prince. Pharaoh gave Joseph his signet ring, dressed him in fine linen robes, and placed a gold chain around his neck. He rode in a royal chariot, second only to Pharaoh. All of Egypt bowed before him. Joseph was 30 years old. He traveled across Egypt, gathering grain during the 7 years of plenty. Storehouses filled across the land. Fields produced in abundance. Joseph married and had 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. Then came the famine. The earth dried. Crops failed. People cried out for bread. But Egypt had grain, and people came from every land to buy food from Joseph. Back in Canaan, Jacob and his sons were hungry. "I have heard there is grain in Egypt," Jacob said. "Go there and buy some, that we may live." 10 of Joseph's brothers traveled to Egypt. They bowed before the governor of the land, not knowing it was their own brother. Joseph recognized them immediately. His heart pounded in his chest, but he did not reveal himself. He tested them first. "Where are you from?" he asked. "From Canaan," they replied. "We are honest men." Joseph tested them further. He accused them of being spies. He demanded they bring their youngest brother. He kept Simeon as a hostage and sent the others home with grain. Jacob was troubled, but when the food ran out, he agreed to send Benjamin. The brothers returned to Egypt, and when Joseph saw Benjamin, his eyes filled with tears. He went into another room and wept. Then he prepared a feast for them. Still, Joseph tested them one more time. He placed a silver cup in Benjamin's sack and sent them away. Then he had them brought back and said, "The one who stole my cup must die." Judah stepped forward. "Take me instead," he begged. "If Benjamin does not return, our father will die of grief." Joseph could no longer hold back. He sent everyone away and wept loudly. "I am Joseph," he cried. "Is my father still alive?" His brothers were speechless. "Do not be afraid," Joseph said. "You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good to save many lives." He hugged them. He wept over them. He forgave them. Then he sent for Jacob. When Jacob heard that Joseph was alive, his heart nearly stopped. But he traveled to Egypt. Joseph rode to meet him. They embraced and wept together for a long time. Jacob settled in Egypt with his family. Joseph provided for them all. Years passed. When Jacob died, Joseph mourned deeply. He buried his father with honor. Before Joseph died, he said, "God will surely visit you and bring you out of this land to the land he promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob." He made them swear to carry his bones when they left Egypt. Joseph died at 110 years old, full of peace and purpose. His story did not end in a pit or a prison, but in a palace by the grace of God. From dreamer to ruler, Joseph's journey was not luck, it was destiny. Because when God is with you, no place is too low, and no dream is too high.